as you know, the area of foreign and security policy of the European Union has a whole lot of specificities. Despite these specificities, the European Union has managed up to now to be quite active and quite efficient in the area of international humanitarian law. And by saying that, I mean that the European Union nowadays is the only regional organization to adopt certain guidelines which deal with promoting the necessary compliance with international humanitarian law. We'll come to that. Besides the Union as a whole, all the member states of the Union have ratified up to now the relevant Geneva Conventions, also their additional protocols. But as we've pointed out in another contribution, the European Union aims at growing together, still aims at doing so, and still has the approach, if possible, to act as a certain union of its member states. For starters, the Commission, the most eminent, I'd rather say, of the institutions of the Union, practically, has its own department dealing with matters of civil protection and humanitarian aid operations, which tries to emphasize the necessary global compliance with international humanitarian law. Besides that, as I mentioned before, the Union has adopted certain guidelines in terms of promoting the necessary compliance with international humanitarian law. These guidelines were first launched in 2005. They were updated in 2009, and since 2018 the Union has been so thorough that it has issued relevant reports for each of the consecutive years, mirroring how especially the member states deal in terms of the necessary compliance to international humanitarian law. The current guidelines of the Union regarding such compliance would be, first of all, whenever public statements have to be done, these statements related to international humanitarian law have to emphasize the need to ensure every necessary compliance with international humanitarian law. Besides, there is a necessity of cooperation with other international bodies, a cooperation between the Union as a whole and all the relevant international bodies. For instance, the International Committee of the Red Cross. Another very important guideline would be the matter of individual responsibility. Besides, relevant training has to be done, and also there has to be a common position in the area of the export of arms, and such a common position was issued by the Council in 2008. In order to give further emphasis to the aforementioned guidelines, I highlighted some of them. In order to emphasize them, the Commission adopted further a communication in March 2021, which deals with matters of the European Union's humanitarian action, new challenges, same principles, stressing out how important it is for the Union to keep continuing to promote the necessary compliance to international humanitarian law, and to have it more or less at the core, at the heart of its own foreign and security policy whenever necessary. Last but surely not least, in 2024, the Union updated its own guidelines on children and armed conflicts. The Union updated it based on its first version of 2008, and this update of guidelines on children and armed conflict is based on the principles of human rights-based approach, on the principles of the right to life, survival and development, the principle of non-discrimination and inclusion, above all, of course, the best interests of the child, with a special emphasis to information about traumas. And the Union, within the very same guidelines, has also issued certain tools for implementing these guidelines and relevant operational tools. These tools include political dialogue, especially human rights aspects in the context of political dialogue with third countries, dealing with the necessity of well-being and rights of children in pre-conflict, in conflict, and in post-conflict situations. Besides the political dialogue, also the EUSR, the so-called EU Special Representatives, they have a significant advocacy role regarding the global adherence to children's rights standards. Besides these tools, in terms of implementing the aforementioned guidelines, the Union, as it happens in so many cases, has the opportunity to monitor and to report, for which the EU heads of mission are of the biggest significance. Thank you very much.